What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Chris, joined by two of the best in the industry, Jurgen and Damian. Guys, how are you today?
Doing
Happy
good.
holidays.
Good,
Thank
good,
you.
good. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, boys, and happy holidays to everyone that's given our show a listen. Our last week's show has been our most listened to so far, so we're really appreciated for that.
Nice. Well, Christmas season is upon us, so maybe that's good news. Maybe it's not. Who knows? I don't even know what day it is anymore. But little get together with the fams. Everyone, hope you all stay safe, of course. But the show must go on. Sports are here, technically, and we're gonna talk about them. So we got a mixed bag for the week. We have NHL news. Finally, Jurgen, you're gonna lead the ship for that one.
Yep.
We have a little discussion about a certain team in the NFL that has taken a huge step back in the last few weeks, and then we're gonna talk about the Christmas lineup for the NBA. There's a bunch of marquee games. We're gonna be releasing this on Christmas Eve. NBA season just started Tuesday, and yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of that. And then we'll discuss maybe the trajectory of some teams when we talk about the Christmas games and who faces who.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. But let's start off, Jurgen. There's a lot of important NHL news. Talk to us. What do you think? What are your expectations for the NHL season based on these news reports? Me and Damian don't necessarily watch hockey. You're more of the NHL purist. So, any encouraging news?
So I think the number one most encouraging piece of news was we finally got a confirmed date for the start of the regular season. You know, the last time I gave an update there, while January 13th was a strong date, it still wasn't yet confirmed by the Board of Governors. So there it was a little bit up in the air, and there was some concern on some sides that like maybe could that even get pushed back. I was very concerned. So the fact that we have the initial dates that we had seen a few weeks back that they're confirmed, that is a big piece of good news. So the key dates that I spoke about a few weeks back, let me to refresh everybody. So on December 30th, the training camp for the teams that did not qualify for the expanded playoffs last year will open. And then a few days later, on January 3rd, the playoff teams will open their training camps. So those are those dates. And then January 13th, the season begins. Around May 8th, May 8th, the regular season will end. May 11th, the playoffs will begin. And I do not have it written down, but I believe there was a date. I think it's somewhere between like July 11th to July 13th. Around that period of time, the NHL has planned it out for the playoffs to where the playoffs will end by that specific time. Most likely in part due to the fact that the Summer Olympics, if all things go accordingly, the Summer Olympics will happen this year. And the NBA and the NHL have both kind of had to plan the end of their seasons around the fact that the Olympics are going to have to take over come the summer. So again, to start off, great news to hear that the NHL came back, obviously. There are little bits of news here and there that worry a little bit, particularly in Canada, but I'm not going to go too much in depth with that. That's something that I think the league will be able to work out with Canada. But hey, in terms of America, we're all set, baby. So like you said, Chris, I think the most interesting difference that we're going to see this season is the divisions. So kind of like how I said a few weeks back, the report and the idea was that the divisions would be changed up for this season to try to minimize travel as much as possible. And of course, we know minimizing travel means reducing costs and a less of a chance at COVID. And we have the confirmed divisions for the league: the North, the East, the Central, and the West. Kind of a mishmash for the most part. A good amount of teams are still going to see each other, even if it was a regular year. But we have a lot of nice crossovers here. Of course, the North is just the All Canada division, which will be interesting. In the East, you have a couple of strong teams in Boston, the Flyers, the Capitals. The Central is a pretty solid division in their own right, and the West as well. The West is Colorado. The Central, as I said, has the last year's Stanley Cup finalists, the finalists in Dallas and the champion in Tampa. They're both in the Central division. So, you're going to want to watch out. That's going to be a top-heavy division. The East with teams like Boston, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Penguins, and the Capitals, one really good team is going to miss the playoffs in that division. So that's going to be a big thing. I think for what they've had to deal with and what they've had to do, I think the NHL so far has done a pretty good job in terms of how the season's going to look. I believe it's a 56 game season, so a little bit more than the 48 game seasons that we've seen in years past due to lockouts. But I'm excited, getting to see all this. And I'm really going to be interested to see what happens. Obviously, it's a little bit of a distorted season to an extent, but I think we're still going to get some quality hockey. And like I've told you guys before, I think tune in for a couple games this year because there are going to be some good matchups because these teams will only face each other. So you're only going to face your divisional opponents. The North Division, because they only have 7 teams, the Canadian teams, they have to face each other 9 to 10 times this season. And the rest of the divisions, they'll face each other 8 times. So they're gonna get sick of one another real quick. I think some rivalries are gonna really get amped up because we have Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in one division, and if there's one thing you'll learn in hockey, it's that Pittsburgh and Philadelphia do not like each other. So I think it's looking good. We have the planned NHL draft dates as well, and the expansion draft. So for all the Seattle Kraken fans out there,
Nice.
yes, for all the Seattle fans out there, the expansion draft is still a go. The protection lists are due July 17th. Tentative, depending on probably the Stanley Cup finalists may need a little more time to give in their list. So I'd say the 17th, 18th, you'll get the final protection lists, and then the draft itself will happen on the 21st. And then after that, the regular NHL draft will be 2 days later on the 23rd and 24th, and then July 28th, free agency opens. So those are all the key dates. The divisions are set. Well, we're probably just waiting on a few little things to finalize, but other than that, the NHL season is looking geared up and ready to go. And like I said, I'm excited. As you said, Chris, I like being called a hockey purist. I don't really view myself. I don't really call myself that. I appreciate it. I'm just excited, man. I've always told people, you got to give hockey a chance. And I think this could be the season, even though there will be no fans, I think this could be a season, just watch how good some of these guys are, how talented some of these teams are. I think you're going to get some pretty good games.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to give hockey a chance, and I think because of the current situation the world's in, I think a lot of people, just because they're starving for sports, might just tune into a few games.
Right.
And again, I'm a fan of all Seattle sports for some weird reason. Being a New Yorker, so I
Nice.
mean, I'm pretty interested because I've never. I mean, I was too young when it happened, but I've never actually experienced an expansion draft. So I'm kind of curious to see how that would turn out. And plus, since I'm a Seattle type of guy, I'd like to see how that team kind of forms and shapes. And you could guide me through it, so
Yeah,
I'm
for
down
sure.
for it. I'm sure Damian would like to, expand his knowledge about it too. But also, Jurgen, there is some additional news. There's some additional news concerning the Lightning. Could you talk
Yes.
about that?
So I sent this to you earlier. So I follow a couple of the main hockey analysts, Pierre LeBrun being one of them, and I learned through him from something he retweeted that the Tampa Bay Lightning superstar forward Nikita Kucherov is having a procedure on his hip, and he, according to the Lightning general manager, he will be missing the regular season. This is not the first time that Tampa's had to deal with this. Actually, in their most recent, in their run where they just won the cup, their captain, Steven Stamkos, missed the entire playoff run except for one game due to injury. So this isn't something they're not strangers to this. They just won the cup with missing their captain. But this is a tough blow. Now, on the bright side, there is a bright side because he is projected to miss the whole regular season. His salary will not count towards the cap. So Tampa Bay now gets $9.5 million to work with, which is something they really, really needed because they just signed 2 of their defensemen to extensions and they were over the cap. So this deal, I believe, according to Cap Friendly, I have to check them. I didn't check them after this update, but I'm pretty sure Tampa is now under the cap, which was a big deal that they needed to do. So, it's a double-edged sword. You get the cap relief you've been looking for, but losing your superstar in the process. This guy won the MVP award 2 years ago. He's one of the game's best wingers, one of the game's best goal scorers. So it's going to be tough for Tampa. I think they are deep enough to where they'll still be fine. They'll still easily be a playoff team for me. So it's tough for them, but I think they'll be just fine. And to kind of wrap this whole thing up, the playoffs, as I had just mentioned, so the playoffs will be a little bit different this year. The way it's going to work is that the top four teams in each of these, realigned divisions will qualify, and they'll be seeded 1 through 4 for the first 2 rounds. Once we get to the conference finals, the teams will be reseeded based off of how good they were. So if the number 1 seed from the Central faces the number 3 seed from the West, the Central team obviously will get home ice advantage. So that's how they're going to do it. I like that because, again, you're minimizing travel as much as possible. And we're kind of seeing, even though the NBA, it's a longer regular season, they'll have, you'll be facing more of the league. I think this was a good move by the NHL. You reduce travel, meaning you reduce cost, which is a big thing for these leagues during this time, as we've mentioned before, like with the NFL and the salary cap and the NBA. This is a big move by the NHL, to try to reduce costs as much as possible. But I still think they're preserving the playoffs well, because divisions is actually how they used to do it way back in the day. You had to kind of go through your division, and that's how they were doing it recently. So I like this. I think for the hand they've been dealt, I think the NHL has done a pretty good job. And yeah, I'm excited. I think I have to give them at least an A-, for how they've handled, like, giving us what the season will look like. Because I like the divisions, I like the dates. Obviously, with the Olympics, you have to do it this way. But yeah, no, the NHL deserves a lot of credit. A lot of people gave the NBA a lot of credit for, like, the bubble and everything, and they deserve it. But the NHL deserves it too, because their bubble was just as successful. So
Yeah, yeah, I think it's just the popularity thing. I just think because the NHL doesn't get as much attention as the NBA does. So like, because I heard like it was the NBA and the NHL handled it really well, and then the MLB just flopped, and then Adam Silver was getting all praise about the bubble, but I'm just like, well, didn't NHL get like do the same exact thing? They have a competent like commissioner, correct?
so Gary Bettman is a very what's a nice word that I could say here? He's a very tough guy sometimes. He's
Like
been
polarizing, maybe.
Yes, 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 polarizing. Like, this year's Stanley Cup Finals was the first time he did not get booed while awarding the trophy. It does not matter what city, it does not matter who it is. He has been booed for how many years now when he gives out the trophy. But for all of that, for all of the hate and disdain, and I don't think some of it is real hate. I think some of it is just, it's kind of like a thing with NHL fans. Like, it's kind of like a get together. It's like, okay, we're gonna boo him at the draft. We're gonna boo him when he's presenting the trophy. It's just a thing where it's like, Bettman. He's done some tough things, and I think he has a pretty difficult job because some of the owners in the NHL are very difficult to deal with. I think if it was like Rob Manfred, if Rob Manfred was running the NHL, I don't even think the season would go off. So Gary Bettman, for all his faults, he deserves a lot of credit because sometimes you need a tough leader, and he's the exact kind of leader that NHL has needed, like, throughout this entire year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see that, man. Especially during these times, you kind of need someone's gonna need to make decisions that not everyone will agree with, just because circumstances kind of dictate that sometimes, and because like circumstances are the way they are, it's gonna be you know a lot of unpopular decisions. So I like sometimes being like a hardened commissioner, it's a blessing and a curse, to be honest.
Yeah.
So props to the NHL for kind of figuring it out. And I'm pretty sure as time goes along, I'm pretty sure as time moves on and progresses, we'll get more updates towards the NHL, and then more opportunities for Jurgen to kind of educate us on the news world of hockey. But yeah, Jurgen, any final thoughts, or you got everything out of your system?
I got just about everything. Like you said, as things continue on, when we get more big news, when things happen, I'll definitely break it down for you guys a little bit more. I'm trying to see, hopefully, like, try to connect with some people here real soon that have some hockey knowledge like myself, and maybe a little bit after connecting, I could try to talk to them, see if they'd ever want to come on and talk some hockey with us. So nowhere near confirmed because I haven't connected with these people yet. It's kind of like a connection of a connection kind of deal. So I hope to get like another voice on here as well because in my mind, the more hockey that's talked about, the better. That's how I view it.
Yeah, yeah, nah, for sure, for sure. I think that's it for hockey news, and we move on to the NFL. NFL is starting to wind down its regular season. There have been somewhat surprises, I guess. Then there was the Titan teams that occurred. It was the Chiefs, and it was the Steelers, and then the Packers pulled up, and then the Saints also pulled up. One of those teams, however, have taken a major step back, and it is the Pittsburgh Steelers, losers of three in a row. Yeah, Juju got rocked to much of the happiness of a lot of people. That's the major story. But other than that, yeah, not relevant. But the Steelers have taken a major step back, have lost three in a row to Washington, um, the Bills, and just recently the Bengals. So these are two out of the three were games that they probably should have won. Bills, I think everyone expected that they would struggle. So this loss wasn't as surprising as the other two. But guys, they went from perennial title contenders and people, arguing whether or not they could go 16-0, and here they are at 11-3 with everyone
fighting,
doubting them.
fighting for a
And every
division.
yeah, and also everyone predicting a possible first round loss. So, guys, I asked you guys because you're more knowledgeable. I asked you guys because you're more knowledgeable about football than I am. Thoughts on this? What do you think happened to the Steelers? What do you think is going to happen going forward as the playoffs, approach? What do you guys think?
Me personally, I was just never a fan of this team. Yeah, they were undefeated and they looked good. And I did think they were a good team, but I thought they were always overrated a bit. I thought their defense was really carrying the team. Their offense, I never really thought was I never really thought their offense was the reason that they were winning games. And after losing a guy like Devin Bush and Bud Dupree, that really hurts their defense. The reason for them winning, which put more pressure on the offense and Big Ben, which clearly he can't carry the load as much as the defense did. So it's kind of just showing what I thought was already true, which is that they aren't a real championship contending team like the Chiefs or the Bills are. Um, the question is now is if they're going to win the division. They're a game ahead of the Browns, and they play the Colts this week, while the Browns play the Jets. So they could easily be tied going into Week 17. And guess what? They play each other in Week 17. So that's going to be a game to watch in Week 17 to see who wins that division. It's quite a fall from maybe going undefeated to not even winning your division.
Absolutely to what Dame said. I think the biggest thing that has hurt this team is just, and this happens to some really good teams in seasons past, it's the attrition of a regular season. I think the Steelers, I think one thing that's probably going to get forgotten about, years from now is the fact that they got kind of messed up early because of COVID. And it wasn't because of losing people, it was losing their bye week. They were forced to have an early bye week because Tennessee did not handle things properly. And at one point, I forget what it was, but they had it was like 4 games in a stretch of just barely over 3.5 weeks. And obviously in the NFL, teams play week after week after week with the bye. But to play 4 games in as compact of a schedule as they were forced to at some point, it takes the toll on the body. And we've seen it because, they lost Bud Dupree. They lost Devin Bush much earlier in the season. I believe they lost another one of their linebackers it was either in the Bills game or the Bengals game. So attrition has not done this team any favors at all. It's one thing if they were performing like this, if they were healthy, but now it's another thing where they've lost a couple guys, they've lost some manpower, and them playing like this, I legitimately worry about the fact that could they be headed to an early playoff exit again? And if they are, you have to point a lot of question marks about this team because like you mentioned at the top, Chris, he's nowhere near the reason for this slide. A lot of people are giving this guy a lot of flack, but Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't care about the TikTok stuff. I care about the fact that he hasn't exactly produced this season and last year either. That's what I care more about. And in a contract year, if I'm not mistaken, it's not a great look. So that's what I care more about. The offense has sputtered to a complete halt. I'll let you and Dame go into more detail with it, but the offense has just not looked as good these last 3 games. They wake up late, but it's not enough. And in the Redskins game, they started early, but they did a terrible job. So This Steelers team is just a mess right now, and I'm getting to the point where if they lost early in the playoffs, I wouldn't even bat an eye because that's how this team is looking like at this point.
Exactly what he said. The offense just doesn't look right. They have no running game. Their wide receivers, although they're probably one of the most talented group of wide receivers in the NFL, they're not doing what they're supposed to. They're dropping a lot of balls. They're not really getting open. And that does some of it does fall on Big Ben too. Like he's not making the throws. He's not making the right reads. So it's it's just a bad downfall for the Steelers. But we'll see. I don't think they're gonna go far in the playoffs though. I never did, but this is just proving to everyone that they aren't that good of a football team.
There's how many games left for them? 2? Is
Two,
everyone at 2 more?
Yeah,
All
too.
right.
yeah.
And who do they have left? Who do they play?
Colts and Browns. 2 games they
Colts
could
and Browns.
easily lose.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, one thing I somewhat know is that momentum is extremely important, especially when you're about to approach the playoffs. And you saw with the Tennessee Titans last year. They caught fire towards the end of the season, and then they made it to the AFC Championship title against the Chiefs. So, look, I mean, there's no excuse for the Bengals loss at least because I
Yeah.
think Mike Tomlin is a competent enough coach where they should have adjusted after Washington and then of course the Bills, and the Bengals are a perfect team to, kind of rebound off bad performances. So that's all I know about it. Do you guys have any final remarks before we move on?
Not really.
I guess my final remark is like I don't want to say like with everything recently like a lot of people have harped on them like I definitely get it, they've definitely been underperforming. That Bengals game, like you said, Chris, there's no excuse for that one. But I think some people are trying to say like they're not a good team. Like I don't think that's it. There's too many other factors. I know that a lot of teams have had to deal with COVID, and I know that injuries are a regular thing, but these are different kinds of injuries. These are the types of injuries that like your star players are getting hurt. Like it's one thing if one guy goes down, but when 3 of your most important pieces on defense go down, and like I think that there's a little bit of an excuse for the defense. But I agree with you guys. Like the offense, I don't know what is going on. Like Dame said, Big Ben can't make the throws, and like right now, this is just the natural aging of a quarterback. Uh, I forget. Well, they didn't because they were shut out in the first quarter. But it's something like there was a stat that I saw where it's like the offense has not scored on an opening drive this entire season, and I think dating back to last year, they haven't scored on an opening drive since like early last year in 2019. So if that offense does not get things together, you're going to see a lot of overturn this offseason from that team on the offensive side of things because this is unacceptable right now.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of breaking news that's not relevant. The Rockets and Oklahoma City game is in jeopardy of postponement tonight, guys. So,
It's beginning already, huh?
I mean, I'm glad that they kind of caught this before they actually played, to be honest.
Right.
So, fuck James Harden. Yeah, that's all I got to say about it. So yeah, moving on to our third and final sport that we just love talking about. Well, I mean, it's not their fault. They give us news that we talk about, and basically the reason that we have this podcast so far. NBA. Christmas is upon us, and NBA is probably basketball is the best sport in terms of just showcasing games, marquee games on Christmas. I think the NFL is like the NFL is so gassed when it comes to Thanksgiving games. I don't think they produce any decent Thanksgiving games. The NBA does a good job at producing games that the fans want. However, this year I was a little bit disappointed at the lineup. It just these were matchups I wasn't necessarily interested in. But let's go through them, and then we'll talk about predictions and who we think will win, and then maybe some of the teams that are gonna play are teams that have already played, and then we'll talk about those teams. So we'll give you a little bit of both, a little bit of extra analysis. So to start off, we got the New Orleans Pelicans, who the NBA is trying to shove down our throats because we were trying to build Zion as a star against Jurgen's Miami Heat team. Now, Jurgen, I know you're happy that the Miami Heat are getting a Christmas game. They deserve it. They went to the finals. Pelicans. Look, I mean, Zion is box office. I mean, I like the Pelicans' roster construction. It's a fast, young paced team. Wow, it's a young, fast paced team with, of course, led by Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball, and then they have other pieces. I feel like the NBA isn't even trying to be low with it. Like they're trying to just shove it down our throats so that this is the team that they kind of want to succeed. Going forward because
Right.
the NBA is always trying to create that new star, and I feel like you don't necessarily need to push this team down our throats because we all know Zion's that guy. We know he's going to be a superstar in the future. But hey, I don't want to complain. This should be, I think, a good game because it's a good litmus test for the Pelicans to see where they're at as they go against the Miami Heat, who have been to the finals recently and who are also a very good defensive team. I am going to go with the Miami Heat on this one. I just think they're a better team. Jimmy Butler, I think, is going to start the season hot. He's going to be motivated. And the Pelicans, and again, the Heat are always ready. They're always prepared, conditionally as well, most importantly. And then I think the Pelicans are going to want to run, and I think Miami's going to do a good job at matching their style, so making it tough for them. I think Zion's going to do Zion things. But other than that, yeah, I hope it's not a blowout. I hope none. I think some of these games are going to be blowouts, but I at least hope that the first game isn't a blowout, and because this has the potential to be a very good game.
Right.
It's I think it's contrasting styles where like the Heat are kind of grit and grind with a little bit of explosionness, whereas the Pelicans play this TikTok style of basketball that everyone thinks is really fun. But yeah, I got the Miami Heat in this hopeful, fun game. Yeah, what do you guys think?
So I agree with you that this is a very weird slate of games to put for Christmas. Especially this one. This is the most like non-interesting game to me of all the
Really?
other ones.
Ooh.
Yes. But I get why they did it. The Pelicans, Zion, you got to market him, so I get why they put him in. Put in the Pelicans to play on Christmas. I just didn't like who they were playing. The Heat are a good team. Obviously, they should play on Christmas. That's not what I'm saying. Both of these
I
teams should
feel
be
you,
playing on
yeah.
Christmas. I just don't like them matching up against each other because like it could be a good game because both teams are just evenly matched, but I don't. It's just not exciting to me. Besides seeing Zion play, but I do think it's gonna be a good game, and in the end, I do have the Heat winning because of the
Jurgen,
inexperience.
Jurgen, before you go on, I'm looking at because I think you're right, Damian. I think I would have loved to get at least a up and coming team against the Pelicans for this
Yeah,
one. I'm
say
trying to
like the
look.
Suns, like the Suns or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but I feel like the NBA are like I guess they don't want to afford putting two small market teams. That's the reason
True.
why to
Yeah,
generate
yeah,
enough
yeah.
interest.
Yeah, but say you could do the Pelicans versus Mavs, and then just have the Heat versus the Lakers again. Like
That is true.
that's even more entertaining to me. Yeah, Luca versus Zion, like, yeah, that's just my opinion.
I agree, but I also think they want to get Luca versus LeBron
Yeah, yeah.
because.
I see that side of it too.
But no, I personally would have. It was never gonna happen. But I would have loved to seen a Pelicans Hornets matchup.
Oh yeah,
That would have been really fun.
Hornets are not going to be playing on Christmas. There's no way.
There's a
Not
chance.
yet.
I feel like they might be in the next few years though.
No, I'm
But
talking
yeah,
about this
anyway.
year. I'm talking about this year.
Oh yeah. No, for sure, for sure. I just would have liked to see it, but they're gonna get a national TV game later in the season. Jurgen, go ahead. What do you got to say about it?
So there was a minute in there where I was gonna say tread carefully, boys, but no, I definitely you guys got to explain. So no, I agree. It is definitely a weird matchup. This isn't the first time either that like Pelicans Heat has been a Christmas Day matchup. I remember years ago. It was like I think it was 2016 or 2017. One of those Christmas days. It was Heat Pelicans. It was weird, really weird. Like Anthony Davis, Chris Bosh. Like it was awkward. So. um, obviously I'm gonna have the Heat winning. Um, I think for Miami, this is a decent test early this year with a physical freak of nature like Zion coming in. To an extent, you get to retest your game plan that you kind of did with Giannis against him, obviously a lot more differently. I think this is just one game where this is a test for Miami's defense early in the season. Like, work out any kinks that they may have, work out any. Now, I don't want to say rust because them and the Lakers just recently played, but just start working things out early on. I think the Heat. I definitely agree that some of the guys could get off to a hot start. Miami, for me, like I know the regular season, it's not the foremost thing in this organization's mind. Like they're going to be solid, with Jimmy, Bam taking another step, Hero, Robinson, like they're going to be a good regular season team. But I don't expect them to come out the gates hot. But I do think a win is fair in this situation. I think the Pelicans more so need to work some kinks out. Obviously, this game with Stan Van Gundy, Stan has to work out the system with them early on. try to get things going. You got to establish. Obviously, Zion's the number one guy, but him and Ingram need to work early on who's going to take how many shots when. You know, if Zion's getting 3 shots in a row, it's time for someone else. When will Zion sit? How much will they be on the floor with one? Or like it's all those various things that you work out early in the season. This is one of those games where it has a little bit to do with the talent, but ultimately it's just which team are you going to bank on working out some of the things better. And I think that edge should go to Miami just because they just made the finals. So I'll give the Heat the victory here, but it's not going to be a blowout. Like I agree, and I agree with your sentiment, Chris. I hate it when the Christmas Day games are blowouts. Like you said, at the NFL, like their Thanksgiving matchups are already skewed because they're forced to have the Lions and Cowboys essentially, and those games usually turn into blowouts. Sometimes the Lions and the Cowboys themselves getting blown out. So I'm hoping for all these games to be as competitive as possible, and I hope this is one of them. I think Zion is great, and watching him against Miami will be fun. And I think Jimmy Butler and the Heat are ready to prove like they've heard plenty of the talk that last year was allegedly quote unquote, maybe a little fraudulent. So I think they're definitely going to come out early. I think this will be a solid game, but I agree with you guys. Like the story just doesn't make sense this year. I agree with Chris that like the Hornets and Pelicans, that needs to be a future matchup in future years. But obviously this year it wasn't going to be it. And I mean, I would have loved a Heat Lakers finals rematch, like you guys said. Like I think Mavericks Pelicans would have been a beautiful matchup here, but we know the NBA, they're going to market whatever they want to market. So it's just how we have to deal with it.
One underrated storyline I have with this game is how Lonzo Ball is going to perform, because I actually like Lonzo Ball and I think he's a perfect point guard for this team. But he also turned he didn't agree to a contract extension with the Pelicans lately, so he's going to be a restricted free agent. He's going to need to perform this season if he wants to get the money he thinks he's worth. And I just because I would hate to, because I think if Lonzo leaves, it's a huge gap, because this is the perfect point guard who could get Zion the ball, who get Ingram the ball, and who likes to play fast, and this team should play fast. So I hope for future's sake, because I think the Pelicans are one of those teams that are going to be really good in the future. I think Lonzo is a big factor in that, so I hope he performs well. This is going to be a very good test, but it's not going to be easy because the Heat are one of the best defensive teams. And also, it's not going to be easy for Zion either, because you got Bam staring right at you. So who knows? Yeah, I hope it's a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. I hope it goes down to the wire, but I think we're all in consensus. We got the Heat winning. Moving on to the Warriors versus the Bucks. Now, I think we were more interested in this before the Nets Warriors game happened.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're all, man, the Warriors have it rough to start the season, man. You got the Nets and then you have the Bucks. I thought, look, I don't want to overreact to one game, but because I think the Bucks are going to have the best record in the NBA, or at least top 2, I think this is going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be your piss break of the game. Um, Man, the Warriors, I don't want to downplay them, because again, there was no training camp, there was no summer league. James Wiseman tested positive, so he had to kind of be in quarantine for a little bit. Draymond's out, so to kind of integrate your new pieces, especially Wiseman, who is going to be your starting center without that many reps that he's had, it's going to be a little tricky to start off, right? But I think he's going to have a really good rookie season. But other than that, I'm kind of concerned for the Warriors. I think it's going to be a blowout. I hope it's not going to be a blowout. I think Steph Curry's going to have a bounce back game, because he had he dropped numbers, but he relatively had an off game for his standards against the Nets. So we'll see. But I just see the Bucks winning this. And maybe it could be close to the first half, but I just see them winning by 20 plus towards the end of the game.
Yeah, this is the one game I do have as a blowout. But it's not. It's more interesting to me than the Heat Pelicans because it's Steph versus Giannis. So I personally am always attracted to watching stars play in these kind of games. So that's why I find it more interesting. But I do think of all the games, this is going to be a blowout. The Warriors didn't look good in the first game. I'm not overreacting. I'm not going to say they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be a good team, because they are. They did have Draymond out. They're still trying to fit Wiseman in. They're still trying to fit Stephen because he missed a lot of last season. So they're still trying to get their groove. They'll be fine. But for now, in the beginning of the season, especially against a Bucks team that's loaded, I do think it's gonna be a blowout. So I have the Bucks by 20 plus as well.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on this one. And like you said, Chris, like what rotten luck for Golden State
Yeah.
to get
Oh,
KD and
boo-hoo, man.
Kyrie.
Oh, no. Like, oh, wow. They had the last 5 years. I don't want to hear it.
But I'm just saying, like for these first
Nah, nah, I
for
feel
these
you. Yeah,
first
yeah, I
two
feel you.
games, like to get KD and Kyrie in the first one, which by the way, KD played pretty well. He and, like to get that, and then to get Giannis, where your rookie big man hasn't gotten any reps because there was no preseason. For your MVP point guard to still need to make his way back. Like I think what Dame said, I think a lot of people are gonna kind of underrate to start off the season. Like Steph needs out of a lot of these guys, Steph is one of these dudes that needs these first like 6 to 8 games to like get himself back in a proper rhythm. This is going to be the first real competitive basketball that he's played in well over a year because even when he came back to the end of the last season, it didn't mean anything. They were so out of the playoffs. So these are like his first important reps, probably since the NBA Finals back in 2019. Like it's crazy to think, but that's what the case is. So I agree. I have the Bucks getting this one just because I think Giannis and them they're going to be motivated to start. Chris, I think what you said last week I think should ring more true. I think Giannis and the Bucks as the season goes, they should try to maybe like put their foot on the gas a few more here and there. But I think early on, I think they want to try to see if they can get early separation. So I see this being one of those games where they try to finish Golden State off early. Another underrated thing, I think the most underrated thing that we're not going to get because of what happened. Could you imagine if Giannis hadn't signed that the max up to this point? Like the post game convo between him and Steph would be trying
Oh, my
to
God.
like
Yeah.
like we're gonna miss out on that because of him signing that. So that's just like a fun little thing that I just wanted to throw in there real quick. But no, I agree with you guys. Bucks are gonna win this one by a lot to no fault of Golden State. They more than most other teams need to work out their kinks very early. And let's hope that Steph at least has a pretty good game to where he can be the leader for them in these early few weeks. Like Dame said, we all picked them to make the playoffs last week in our prediction show for the standings. So, none of us are going to back off on that. This team just needs a little time. They're just getting unlucky, which that sometimes it just doesn't go your way.
Yeah. Well, I don't care because I've watched them just breathe down my face with that dynasty of a team the last 5 years. So, I'd get a little bit of humbleness. That's all I could say. Anyway, we move on to a Nets versus Celtics game where Nets have played against the Warriors already, so we kind of see how their team's going to be like. This is going to be interesting because this is the first good team that the Nets will be facing. Yeah, so I have the Nets winning this. I think it's gonna be one of those games where it's gonna be like close for a majority of the game, and then I can see the Nets just kind of pulling away because of their firepower on the offensive end towards the end. Yeah, KD's looking good, man. As we saw against Golden State, this team I think are gonna be so ahead of the game offensively, man. They have a lot of firepower. They have Levert's looking good in that 6-man role. They seem to have really good ESP with DeAndre Jordan as well. Joe Harris can knock down threes when those two are just moving the ball and all that. Dinwiddie seems to be the odd man out, but even then, man, like they just team is so deep and they're so stacked. And I think but then again, I also think they're gonna be not as good defensively, right? And I think the Celtics are going to make it difficult for them because I think the Celtics are a good defensive team. So I think it'll be a fun matchup. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I hope the Celtics win this game because we're an anti-Nets podcast here. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be. I'm gonna be curious. I'm gonna be curious to see how the Celtics play without Kemba, and I want to see. I think this is the first time that it's gonna be fully Jason Tatum, right? This is like because you had Kyrie the first 2 years, and then even though he's not as like good as Kyrie, he's still really good. It's Kemba, right? But now it's his team for the time being. I don't want to say people overrate Jason Tatum. I know he's really insanely good, and I think he has superstar potential. But now's his chance to prove it to me at least because the Celtics team doesn't have Gordon Hayward anymore. Kemba's out for the time being. So I think the ingredients are there for Jason Tatum to kind of like explode into that echelon of just high tier superstars. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a good test against the Nets. I got the Nets winning though.
All right. So this is one of the most interesting games to me, not because of the superstars in it, but just because I think these two teams are so evenly matched, and I'm just really looking forward to see how they match up against each other because they're gonna be fighting on top of the Eastern Conference along with the Bucks. Like Chris said, the Nets aren't really that good of a defensive team, but on the other hand, the Celtics are. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that matches up against each other in this game. Obviously, one game, especially if in the beginning of the season, really doesn't mean much. A lot can change in the regular season, but we're really gonna see like which team has the edge, which team can exploit the other team's weaknesses. So that's gonna be good to see. Like Chris said, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a close game going to the end, and I just think at the end of the day, KD is going to KD, and he's gonna take the game over at the end, and the Nets are gonna pull out with the victory. But I'm really eager to see how these teams match up against each other because they're going to be matching against each other all year and maybe even in the playoffs.
Right, right. These are definitely two of the teams that are going to be competing at the top of the East throughout the entire year. And heck, maybe this is a preview of what we could see in the Eastern Conference Finals or even the Eastern Conference Semifinals, all depending on what the final seeding is. But, for me personally, I'm actually going to go the other way here. I'm actually going to pick the Celtics to win this one. Um,
Woo!
I definitely agree with you guys. Like the Nets' firepower is 100% like lethal, and as the season progresses, we're gonna see it, continue to grow more and more and more. But I just kind of get a vibe of this game, and I am in no way going to predict this like thoroughly because like I have been wrong before, and I wouldn't be shocked if I'm wrong here. But I just feel this is the kind of game where Boston they're gonna want to get some sort of like light edge early on here. Jason Tatum is a guy who a lot of people wanted to try to anoint a superstar last season. And he's definitely a star. He needs to show for a full year that he can produce the way he did. I have no doubt this will be his superstar season. And this could be kind of a coming out party. I know he has some love for Kyrie, considering everything, at least from what they show. But I'm sure he wants to play really well in this game. Him and Jalen want to go at it competitively against Kyrie and KD. Tatum, he grew 2 inches. Like, in no way am I saying he's going to play defense on KD like to a thorough extent, but he could potentially slide into the category this season of maybe being someone you could potentially put on KD to maybe bother him. I don't think that's a stretch. Obviously, I'm not expecting that to happen all in one game, but that could be something to go on as we see, depending on how he develops more. I just like I said last week. I think some of the additions the Celtics made, they're more regular season moves. I'd like Jeff Teague as a playmaker for them off the bench. I think he's solid, and Tristan Thompson is going to help on the interior. Which I think, if there's one thing I could give the Celtics the edge to here, the Nets don't have that definitive interior force. Like Kyrie, of course, is a magician when he drives, and KD can drive, but they don't have a low post beast to really exploit that weakness thoroughly on the Celtics. And I think that could really help them out. And I think Boston's guys, while Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan are both solid, I think Boston's guys can attack the rim to the extent where they'll eventually tire one of them out and maybe get one of them in foul trouble. This is one of those close games where I just think like we'll see it go possession for possession at the end, like a little bit of a shootout, and I really want to see that out of this game. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to rock with Boston on this one. I just get a feeling that like they're going to come out with a little bit more in this one. The Nets, I think, that was a good opening night win. And I know it was a blowout, so that's why. But I'm really interested to see this early part of the season how much Nash is going to handle KD's minutes restriction.
Yeah.
Like, I know KD doesn't exactly have one, but, if in the midway through the third quarter, if the Nets are down by 6, most situations you'd think to keep KD out there, but what if he sits him and Kyrie? So it could just be something like that might make the difference. This little change here, but I just have the Celtics taking this one early in the season.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a good litmus test to see where Kevin Durant's at because I think the Celtics will play him physically. And it'll be the first I think this will be the KD's first real test,
Yeah,
I think against Golden State that was a good kind of warm up for him to see where he's at. Now it's actually now you're in the heat zone. You're officially in the NBA, season. But
yeah.
yeah, I think Jurgen got the Celtics, me and Dame got the Nets. Hopefully it's a good game. I think it's going to be a
Oh
good
yeah.
game. I hope it doesn't drift off towards the end.
I think you're
But
spot on, Chris, because Brad Stevens is a solid defensive coach, and Brown and Tatum, they both have length. Brown's a known defender at this point. Um, I think that personally for me, that's the main reason why I'm making the difference, like you said. The Celtics will be the Nets' first test, and depending on how KD responds, if he responds well, that may be an omen for the rest of the conference to how the season's gonna go.
yep, and of course these two teams are in the Atlantic Division with the Knicks. But anyway, we move on to the Mavericks versus the Lakers. This is gonna be easy for me, Lakers. This is gonna look. Luka's generational. We all know that. This is the reason why this game is occurring is because it's Luka versus LeBron on Christmas stage. So obviously this means ratings for the NBA. Best player in the NBA right now versus likely one of the best players, if not the best player in the next 5 or 10 years. Mavericks are without Porzingis, lost Seth Curry, added Josh Richardson. Their Mavericks are an offensive team, but I think the Lakers coming off the loss against the Clippers, I think they're going to be more locked in this game. And I could see this also being kind of a blowout, to be honest. Maybe Luka will make it interesting for a bit, but I could see the Lakers kind of taking over because who the hell is guarding Anthony Davis on this team? Who's guarding LeBron? The Mavericks may be gassed offensively, but I don't know which defensive piece they're gonna have to slow down the top two of LeBron and KD. And don't give me James Johnson. James Johnson's there to just motivate
Protect
them
Luka.
to yeah, protect Luka to kind of motivate the younger guys to just toughen them up a bit. Yeah, easy Lakers for the reasons I already stated. I don't got to go any further.
Right.
This is one of the most interesting matchups to me because it's LeBron versus Luka. Looking back on last season, every time they matched up, it was one hell of a game. It was and wildly entertaining. Remember that one overtime game I think that they went to was sick. This year, yes, there's no Porzingis in this game, but I still think it's gonna be a pretty entertaining game. If this was later on in the season, I probably would have said it was gonna be a blowout towards the Lakers. But it is the beginning of the season. LeBron doesn't like really trying in the beginning of the season, as we saw in yesterday's game against the Clippers. But yeah, so I don't really see it as being a blowout. I do think the Lakers are going to win at the end of the day because they are the better overall team, and the Mavs are missing Porzingis. But I'm really excited to see how this matchup goes with LeBron and Luka. I hope it's a big time game for both of them, like it was last season. But I don't really think it's gonna be a blowout like you do, Chris. But I can see why you think that.
Yeah,
Right.
Jurgen.
I'm always excited when LeBron and Luka go at each other. We don't know how many more times we're going to get this matchup, so I'm definitely going to enjoy this one. Um, I agree with you guys. I think the Lakers do take this one. I'm kind of in the middle with what you guys are saying because I definitely see Dame's point to where it's like, this early in the season, I don't think the Lakers are exactly in the mode to have a blowout in them against a team like Dallas. But at the same time, to Chris's point, I think the ultimate thing that is making us all pick the Lakers is just the fact that Porzingis not being there. It's not even just with Anthony Davis. Montrezl Harrell, if you don't have a strong interior presence, he's just going to eat up down there in the low post. So, and like Dame pointed to, like, if you're a person who for a team season, if you actually go game by game to figure out like the identity of a team, you're going to be really confused after this Lakers game, man, because I don't want to say they didn't care, but that was nowhere near 100% effort. I don't even know if that was 70% effort that the Lakers gave in that game, and they nearly came back. So this is a game where, like Dame said, they start slow, but this is also a game where LeBron looks at the first game like, okay, we ended up losing that game. Let's put a little bit more in this one. Let's kind of see if we can build an early lead and sit, because look at the minutes in the last game. LeBron played under 30 and AD barely played over 30 minutes. That, I think, is going to be a key to some of these Lakers games. I wouldn't be shocked if the Lakers try to make this a blowout just to sit LeBron and AD more in this one, because at the end of the day, the key thing will be how are LeBron and AD come to playoffs. And as we've said so many times in different episodes, if LeBron and AD are fully healthy in a 7-game series, you aren't going to beat them 4 times. And I think the Lakers are going to play the long game here, not with sitting them for whole games, but in certain games, they're going to go for the throat early and try to get their stars as much rest as possible, and even some of these bench players as much playing time as possible to give them confidence come later in the season. So I think all of that is gonna morph into. I'm gonna say it's gonna end up being like a 12 to 15 point win, but I could see it going in the 20s at some point to where the Lakers can sit their guys. Like I think this will be a game where the final score will be closer than what we saw a bit earlier on.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I could see LeBron being just extra motivated because it is Christmas, and he obviously loves his drama. So Christmas Day, he might just decide to just show up and get the rest of the team motivated to show up as well.
Yeah. Look, few factors for me. To kind of wrap this one up. I don't think Lakers are gonna go 0-2. I think there's no shot they go 0-2. And also, I do think while LeBron has gone on record that he's a big fan of Luca, like Damian said, it's prime time on Christmas, and LeBron loves to show that he's the best in the world. And it's also, I think there's also a lot of hype towards Luca, and I think this is kind of LeBron's chance to be like, hey, yo, this is still my league. So, yeah, I mean, again, we don't want blowouts. I mean, speaking for me and Damon, we hope that the Mavericks lose, of course, because that's
Yes,
better for the Knicks. But
of course.
look, hopefully it's a decent game. But again, we never want to take these generational matchups for granted. But yeah, moving on to the final matchup, and the one that maybe have the potential to be the best game. We got a rematch of the Western Conference semifinals, the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Denver Nuggets. This could go either way. I'm gonna go with the Clippers on this one, just because I think that semifinals L is still in the back of their minds. They've heard the talk, and I think they're gonna be locked in for this game. Hopefully Paul George can kind of ride this momentum he's kind of built based off one game. Maybe I'm overreacting to it, but yeah, man, it's kind like I think the Clippers going to take it personal against them. So I don't think there's much to lose for the Nuggets because this game is, I think, more important to the Clippers. Uh, I think it's also important for them to kind of reestablish or rehabilitate the reputation around the league with these first two games because it's the Lakers and it's the Nuggets, right? It's a team they lost to, and it's the crosstown rival. They're gonna lock in defensively a lot more, but I just think that the because of the extra motivation, I expect the Clippers to kind of win this. And I'm also interested to see how Ibaka kind of. Obviously, Jokic is the better player, but I would love to see how Ibaka kind of matches up against Jokic because that's the reason why they got Ibaka. It's specifically for these type of matchups. Against the Jokic's of the world that ate against them. That literally ate their food and just chewed Montrezl Harrell alive. So I'm kind of interested to see that. Maybe Luke Kennard could have a bounce back game because he got paid a shit ton of money and he underperformed the first game, but it's his first game with them, so we'll see. Yeah, I got Clippers on this one.
Yeah, so I agree. This is probably one of the most intriguing matchups of these Christmas Day games. Very similar to the Nets versus Celtics, two of the best teams in their conferences that are going to be battling it out for seeding throughout the regular season, and their individual matchups are going to be great as well. And most likely, these teams are just like the Nets and Celtics are probably going to meet in the playoffs as well, probably maybe in the Western Conference Finals or semis. Um, comes when it comes down to this game specifically, I do have the Clippers as well. Not because I do think they're a better team, because I do think the Nuggets are a better team, but I just think because of what happened in the bubble and all the talk and disrespect on the Clippers, I think they're going to be extra motivated, a lot more motivated than the Nuggets are going to be. Um, they're going to have a point to prove that last year was just a fluke, and that's not really the team they are, especially against these Nuggets. That's why I do have the Clippers winning. And you, Chris, you mentioned the Ibaka thing. I'm really curious to see that as well because that is why they brought him in to guard a guy like Jokic or guard a guy like Anthony Davis against the Lakers. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Serge Ibaka experiment goes against Jokic. Because that was their main weakness last year and a big reason why they did lose in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I do have the Clippers winning this game because I do think this game means more to them than it does to the Nuggets.
Right. I'm definitely a guy who, aside from the talent that you see on teams when they match up, if there's like an intangible thing, if there's a attitude or a motivation thing, that speaks to me. The biggest reason that I will always say the Clippers failed to reach expectations last year was because they did not carry themselves with the proper attitude they should have had. The goal should have been to win a championship, not get to the Lakers and just let us get to the Lakers because you all are inferior compared to us. That's why they lost. Um, So with that in mind, I think some of the guys at least hopefully got humbled a little bit by that. And I agree with you guys. I think the ultimate thing here will just be the motivation of last year's playoff loss to the Nuggets for not only just beating them, but guys know nowadays how critical social media is. And all of these guys know that they got slaughtered last year on social media. Like nobody held back. It forced me to make a video on my Instagram to actually talk about it. So, at the end of the day, I agree with you guys. I got to go with the Clippers here just based off of that. And Chris, what you said, I think we'll see it early. How big will Ibaka be for the Clippers? This is his first test. This is his first true test because, again, that Lakers game, I know AD and Harrell were there, but it just wasn't all energy, all effort. I think the next time they face the Lakers will be uh, a better scale for how Ibaka will do come the playoffs. I think this will be his first true test because Jokic is going to go at him because this Denver team, this is my only thing. While I think Denver has like the good part of having beaten the Clippers, I think they're going to be motivated. They know that a lot of people have them as pretenders this season. I'm sure they have to know. And I think they could definitely come out early. I definitely don't think this will be a blowout. I think this could be a close game throughout. But I just think at the end of the day, Kawhi and Paul George, because Paul George had a great first game, um, the two of them early on, or I should say, yeah, early on in the season and late in this game are going to try to enforce their talent and their will to close things out. So if I had to guess it, I'll say this game probably ends by like 8 or 9 points, but it's one of those games where it turned into a 9 point game when it was just a 3 point game with like a minute and a half to go.
I agree. I think we stated all we could about the Clippers. Look, we could exhaust cutting ass on the Clippers, but I mean it's up to them to prove it and to prove us wrong. But we'll see as time progresses. Yeah, that'll be it for this week. Guys, a very solid week, very diverse week. A
Wow,
bunch of
we're
shit to
under an
talk about.
hour.
Yeah, so that's why I want to close this because we're at 58. We're just drawing that line.
That's awesome.
Guys, solid work this week, like always. Listeners, thank you if you made it this far. Happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, and also
Yes.
Merry Christmas to you guys as well, to Jurgen and Dame, my
Yes,
consigliaries that make
sir.
this
To you guys
podcast
and your
possible.
families.
Yeah, so guys, stay safe, masks on, please. And yeah, that'll be it. Enjoy some sports.
Yes.
Peace.
Happy holidays.
Peace.